I am April Rozzo, one of Florida Cancer Specialists, registered dietitians, and Angie Mathewson is on the call with us also. She will be moderating for me. Hi, Angie.
Hi, April. Good to see you.
You too. So we are going to jump in and get started. We are making cranberry maple steel cut oatmeal today. So the first thing I'm going to do is try to get my close-up camera. We'll see how that works. And then we're going to go ahead and get started with the oats. So we're going to get everything cooking. Oops. Hang on. How's that? That's better. Okay. But it's not giving me the close-up. I wanted you guys to have a nice close-up of the cranberry, but it may not let me do that. Okay, we are just having all kinds of technical difficulties today, so we're going to ixnay that, and I'll just show you the cranberries as we go. So let's get the oatmeal started. We're going to start with, I'm using milk. So the recipe calls for either milk or water to make your oatmeal. I like my oatmeal better with milk. I think it has more flavor, it tastes creamier. So that's what I'm going to use. You can use a milk substitute, like almond milk or coconut milk, oat milk, if you prefer, kind of whatever you like. So we're going to start by just heating up the liquid, whether it's milk or water. We want to bring it to a boil, and then we're going to add the oats and the salt. So I've got it pretty close to medium heat, medium low, and we're just going to kind of let that heat up. While that
April,
is, yes.
Sorry, you do need to go really slow with milk. You can scald it if you try to bring it to a boil too quickly.
You can. So don't jack it up to medium high just to ramp up the cooking. That is also the reason I have it in the Dutch oven instead of just a regular saucepan. You can put it in a saucepan, but the Dutch oven helps kind of prevent some of that scalding and burning of the milk. Okay. So I've got it, it's close to medium, but we're not at medium heat. And so while that is warming up, I'm going to also get the cranberries started. And we cook cranberry relish at Thanksgiving the same way. So instead of using canned cranberry sauce or cranberry jelly, we do homemade cranberry relish. And so we're going to cook it in very much the same way. So I have fresh cranberries, just a bag of fresh cranberries from the grocery store. I bought 3 bags when they were on sale, and you just throw them in the freezer, and they're great. So then yesterday I pulled one of the bags out, put it in the fridge to let it thaw out. And now I've got fresh thawed cranberries. So I'm just going to get those in my saucepan. And we are going to add to that. I'm going to go ahead and put this on medium heat also. And we're going to add to that a little bit of water, 3/4 of a cup of water. And this is just going to help it to cook. It's going to allow for the juices to create that nice sauce. We're also going to add some fresh squeezed orange juice. So look, you don't have to squeeze your own oranges if you don't want to. I was fully prepared to use orange juice. I like the little cartons of orange juice. I keep some that are shelf stable in the pantry, hurricane season. I don't drink a lot of orange juice, so I don't tend to keep big bottles of it in the fridge. And I pulled one out today, and the expiration was like 2020. That's how often I drink orange juice. So needless to say, it did not look or smell good, but I happen to have some fresh oranges in the fridge. So 1 orange gives you about a 1/2 cup of juice. And then I just zested the outside. I went ahead and put the zest in with the juice. I just mixed it all together. That is so the orange flavor pairs really well with the cranberries. And the sweetness of the orange juice also helps offset the tartness of the cranberries. So that's why we're using that. We are also going to add in 2 tablespoons of maple syrup.
And I'm gonna double check, is that the real deal? Did you get that on your trip to Vermont?
So I am very spoiled that my sister lives in Vermont. And so, yes, I have real deal from Vermont maple syrup. You guys don't have to go to Vermont to get maple syrup. I'm just very spoiled and lucky.
If you can get there, highly recommended though.
That's right. I highly recommend it. So we're just going to let this cook. I have some cinnamon that is also going to go in with the cranberries. And I'm just going to hold off on putting that in until the cranberries start to cook and soften a little bit. Because I don't want the cinnamon to burn. I don't want it to lose its flavor. So I'm just going to hold off on putting that in. But right now, as it's warming up, I can smell that orange juice. It's going to go really well with the cranberries. So I've still got my milk heating over here. You can give it a stir now and then. That helps prevent it from scalding. And just make sure that it's moving around in the pan. Because my Dutch oven is so big, it shouldn't take long for this to heat up and boil. But we're going to give it a little bit more time. So while we are waiting on all of this to start cooking, we're doing breakfast because that is one of the most common questions that I get on a daily basis from my patients, my clients. What should I eat for breakfast? What do I do about breakfast? Because what do most of us do about breakfast when we're not worried about nutrition? We have a bowl of cold cereal, or we have pancakes or French toast, right? And when we're trying to eat healthier, that's maybe not the most nutritious option to have on a daily basis. So everybody wants to know what to have for breakfast. Oatmeal is a fantastic source of so many different nutrients. It is fiber, specifically soluble fiber. So there are 2 different kinds of fiber. You have the digestible, soluble fiber, which is easy on the gut. And then you have the insoluble, harder to digest fiber, which we kind of refer to as roughage, right? Like your raw fruits and vegetables. We need both. The GI tract needs both. But oatmeal, because it is this nice soluble fiber, it helps promote bowel regularity. It can help lower cholesterol because it binds a lot in the GI tract. It can bind that cholesterol and help move it through instead of your body absorbing it. So it can help, it's heart healthy, bowel regularity, and we know that having these healthy plant-based fibers in the diet are good for our GI tract and helping to reduce cancer risk. Angie, you look like you were going to say something.
I'm going to say that it's it is a type of soluble fiber, and it's beta glucan. And I also want to make a plug for one of my favorite grains, which is barley. And we have a favorite soup here that is really just barley, ground turkey or chicken, and some onion, carrot, and then like frozen veggies and broth.
Fantastic.
And yeah, and my kids love it. And well, one of my kids loves it. It's a half and half hit, but yeah. So if you, in soups, barley is a nice switch out for noodles or white rice, and it has that same beta glucan benefit that the oats do.
Fantastic. I was going to say something else and I forgot.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. That soup sounds amazing. I really like barley also. And for my oatmeal, I prefer the steel cut oats. So there are a lot of different, there are like 3 different types of oatmeal that you can get at the grocery store. You can get instant or quick cooking oats. You can get old fashioned oats. You can get steel cut oats. And basically what that is referring to is how much it's been processed, how much the grain itself has been processed. So the instant oats, the quick cooking oats, are the most processed. Because that way they cook super quick. That also means that you lose a little bit of the nutrition sometimes because it's been processed so much. you lose a little bit of that grain. The old-fashioned oats, great choice. They still are quick cooking in my world. I mean, they only take 5 or 10 minutes, 5 minutes on the stovetop, 1.5 minutes in the microwave. That's still pretty quick for me. And they're still very nutritious. The serving sizes are different between old-fashioned oats and steel cut, because the steel cut is a bigger grain. It's less processed. So a serving of the steel cut oats is a 1/4 cup, whereas it's dry, a 1/4 cup dry, and then it cooks and expands. And then a serving of the old-fashioned oats is a 1/2 cup dry, and it'll cook and expand. This is starting to boil, so let's put that on hold. I'm going to go ahead and add the oats in and the salt. And again, the salt, it's just a pinch of salt. It just helps, it's going to help offset and enhance the sweetness of the cranberries when we add it in. So I'm going to get my oats in, my steel cut oats.
And it helps the grain absorb the liquid too, right? To put a little salt in there.
And I hold off on adding the salt until after the liquid is boiling, because when you put it in first, when you put it in with the liquid and then try to bring the liquid to a boil, it can actually slow down the boiling. So I always wait until the liquid is at a boil, and then I add the salt in.
Okay.
So we've got that cooking. This is going to take about 20 minutes to cook. So we probably will be finishing up right around 12:30, if not a few minutes after. And I apologize for those late start technical difficulties.
We can't control the technology all the time.
We cannot control the technology, no. So once this, we're not at a full rolling boil yet, so I'm going to leave the heat the same for right now. But once it gets going, once it gets boiling a little bit more, I'm going to knock the heat down a little bit so that it just simmers for that 20 minutes. It doesn't need a full rolling boil for that long. And that'll also help keep the milk from scorching on the bottom. So the steel cut oats, the reason I like them better, so that the old-fashioned oats and the steel cut oats are still both really nutritious options. Remember, the old-fashioned is a 1/2 cup serving, steel cut is a 1/4 cup serving. So for each of those, you're looking at 4 to 5 grams of fiber and about 5 grams of protein, which is pretty good for a breakfast option. And they're also a really good source of iron and B vitamins. So the oatmeal is a nice healthy breakfast. Because I'm cooking it with milk, I'm adding protein. So it's kind of a one bowl meal with everything I need in it. If you're cooking your oats with water, you may consider adding a protein to your breakfast. Maybe a scrambled egg, or maybe you put some peanut butter in your oatmeal, or maybe you have a little cup of yogurt to go with it, just to make it a more complete breakfast as an option. The steel cut is also chewier. It has more texture, more chew in the texture to it than old-fashioned oats. Because it's less processed, because it's a larger grain, it's going to have kind of a chewy taste and a little bit of a chewy texture and a nutty taste, which I really like a lot. So
now when they cook up, is the 1/4 cup versus the 1/2 cup, does it end up a similar volume?
It does, because the steel cut expands so much.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and it gets really thick and heavy,
I haven't used the steel cut. My husband and youngest daughter do the rolled oats or quick oats.
Okay.
Not the instant ones, the in between.
The in between, exactly.
And I don't like them. I think I should try the steel oats because I find regular stuff mushy.
Yes, and that's why I like the steel cut, because it has way more texture to it. Yeah. All right, so this is a nice simmer. I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit, and I'm going to put a lid on it. We're going to take that lid off and stir it occasionally, but this way it kind of holds the heat and it allows it to cook a little bit quicker. And I'm going to show you guys, I don't know if you can see in here. So the cranberries are starting to cook and they're starting to open up. Can you see that?
Yeah, we can see it. is it popping up the similar way as when you make cranberry sauce at Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
But we're not going to take it all the way to the gelatinous
I
phase.
like it chunky, you
Okay.
know? So you want the cranberries to soften so that they're starting to burst. That's what releases the juice, to give you that really nice cranberry sauce or relish. How much you cook it is up to you. It's not gonna get gelatinous per se, because we didn't put any gelatin or anything in it, like you would get in the canned cranberry jelly. So it's never going to get that texture, but you can cook it more and really get the cranberries to break down so that you don't have bigger chunks of cranberries, or you can cook it less, so that you do have those big chunks of fresh cranberry in there. It's your preference. Same with applesauce. If you've ever made applesauce from scratch, you can cook it way down until it's like totally puree. Or you can stop the cooking sooner so that you have chunks of apples in the sauce. We're going to do the same thing with the cranberries.
And apples are another nice complement with the 4 cranberries together.
Yes. I mean, you could easily do this recipe with like half cranberries, half apples. And I would actually cut back on the sugar, either cut back on the orange juice or cut back on the maple syrup, because the apples are going to add some sweetness of their own. So then you're not going to need the extra sweetness. But just doing it with the cranberries, they're so tart that you need something to offset that a little bit. So I can hear this bubbling and simmering. I'm going to give it a little stir. I know you guys can't see the close-up. I'm sorry. But I'm going to serve it up and show you what it looks like.
Maybe we can post some pictures.
Yeah.
And I have a question here. Is oat bran nutritionally comparable to steel cut oats?
It is probably not exactly comparable. The oat bran, I mean, it depends on what you're buying, because I think just like with the oats, you have different choices for oat bran cereal. So if it is whole natural bran, it's probably fairly comparable. If it's bran flakes, it's probably more processed and maybe not quite as comparable. But when in doubt, I would compare those nutrition labels, the facts labels in the store. So you like
look at how much fiber and how much protein you're getting.
Yeah. So this is my steel cut oats. I would just take that label and compare. On this label, it shows me the fiber, it shows me the protein, it shows me the iron content. It doesn't show me the B vitamins, but I would at least compare those other components, those other nutrients, and just see if they're the same, if they're different, and then you can kind of go from there.
And if it gets confusing with this whole volume question, the label should also have the grams on there. So you could get a sense of, are you comparing, back to apples, are you comparing apples to apples?
Right.
With this whole quarter cup versus half cup thing, you could look at what does it weigh?
Absolutely. And also, you can look at the serving size and think about what are you likely to eat? You know what I mean? So the serving size on here is a quarter cup, not cooked, quarter cup dry. So what's the serving size on the bran? Is it a cup? Is it a half cup? And you can kind of compare it that way too.
And now that, sorry, do you have, there's a question about the cost difference of steel cut versus old fashioned oatmeal, which honestly may be why I bought the Quaker Oats canister.
I don't think it's a huge price difference, to be honest.
No, there's probably some brands, right? Because there's like a lot of the target audience for steel cut are also like going to be looking for organic, no cross contamination type of.
And that's what's going to change the price. It's not necessarily the steel cut versus the old fashioned that changes the price. It can be the brand. It can be whether it's organic. I have the Target brand of steel cut oats. Yeah. Okay. Because it was cheaper than the Quaker. Oh.
Okay. Okay. Well, and I think whatever you buy in terms of oatmeal, whatever the preference is, the big thing is you're looking for it to not be in the little envelope with a ton of
All the
all
sugar.
the sugar. Yeah.
Yeah.
So even
Yeah.
if you buy the instant, right? If you buy the plain instant, would that be
Mhm.
not, maybe not ideal, but
But it's at least not going to have all the added sugar in
right,
it. Yes.
right.
So you can buy, instead of the packet, you can buy just the canister of,
Hmm.
yeah, of the
Which
quick
would be
cooking
even more
oats.
economical. Hmm.
Right. Yeah. So that would bring the price down as well. These are thickening up nicely. Can you kind of show that if you guys can see that a little bit? Yeah. Um, so yes, you could do that and just try to avoid the packet with all the sugar added.
Hmm.
And we're adding sugar, but look, oatmeal by itself is not great. It's really plain and bland. It does not have a ton of flavor. So of course we're going to flavor it, but we only used for 4 servings. This makes 4 servings. We only used 2 tablespoons of maple syrup for the whole thing. And like I said, there's some orange juice in there. There's no added sugar from the orange juice because it was a fresh squeezed orange. And we're using the cinnamon to also help flavor it so that we can reduce the sugar. So cinnamon itself, like if you just put ground cinnamon on your tongue, it's not sweet per se, but when you put cinnamon in a recipe, it adds so much flavor that it almost gives you the perception of sweetness. So it allows us to cook with less sugar because we're adding this other flavor into it. So that's the other reason for the cinnamon.
And similarly, the maple syrup is not less sugar than using table sugar, but it has that earthy flavor that's going to enhance your oatmeal, bring out the cinnamon.
Yeah.
And so you can get away with using less of it. And actually, if you think it would be pertinent, I do have a little link to the review I did of maple syrup and honey
Yeah,
and
yeah,
things. I'm going to put that
absolutely.
in the chat
Okay.
because it has a little comparison if folks are interested. And again, that applies to the pure maple syrup, not necessarily from Vermont, but not the, Hungry Jack, which those kind of big brand names are just, they're just corn syrup with brown
Yeah,
food coloring in them.
absolutely. Yeah, no, that would be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that way everybody can see that. And the cranberries, we haven't gotten a chance to talk about the cranberries. This is very saucy at this point. I'm going to grab a spoon so that you can see this. So we've got a lot of sauce happening. We still have some chunks of cranberry in there, but this is pretty much where I want mine. Okay. So I'm just going to put all that back in. So now I'm going to add the cinnamon. And we haven't talked about cranberries, but they are a fantastic source of phytochemicals, antioxidants, namely anthocyanin, that probably help reduce cancer risk. Cranberries have also been shown to have some heart health benefits with lowering cholesterol. They help promote the good gut flora, that gut microbiome that we talk about all the time. Possibly good for UTIs. A lot of people use cranberries for UTIs, but the research itself is still a little mixed on if cranberries definitively help prevent UTIs or resolve UTIs. All right, so I'm going to take this off the heat. And
I
I'm going
did
to
when I looked, they're also good for your mouth. So if you have any, and it's the same concept for the UTI that anthocyanins prevent bacteria from clinging to your mouth.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it does in the GI tract.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating.
So our oatmeal is nice and thick. It's absorbed all that milk. Okay. So I turned the heat off. Now you can serve this a couple of different ways. If everybody is eating, if you're cooking it for one meal, you've got 4 family members and you're going to serve it up right there, you can make it pretty. You can put half the cranberry sauce into the oatmeal and mix it up. And then when you put it all in the serving bowl, you can top it with some more of the fresh cranberry relish. And then you can top it with, I have some toasted pecans. You can top it with some extra orange zest if you would like. So I'm going to add some of this cranberry relish. Now, later, when we disconnect this video, I'm going to add all the cranberry relish into the oatmeal because I'm going to put it in the fridge. I'm going to eat it through the week. So there's no reason for me to like make it pretty for myself. But I'm going to go ahead and give this a stir and get all the cranberry goodness mixed in. So I'm smelling, now that the cranberries have popped, I'm smelling all that fresh cranberry. I'm smelling cinnamon. I'm smelling the orange. And frankly, it's not very nice outside today. So this is kind of perfect. I'm probably going to have this for lunch today.
Comfort food.
Yeah. So I'm just going to put that in there. Okay.
And there's a question about the recipe being shared, which the recipe is in the invitation, but we can share it again.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think this is one you could enhance in other ways that you kind of wanted to, you know?
Yeah. So I've got a little bit of that fresh cranberry on top. I'm going to sprinkle it with some pecans. And as long as you're not allergic to nuts or have any kind of aversion to nuts, I very much recommend the pecans or walnuts because it adds a little crunch. It gives you some more texture. It adds another layer of flavor. So I'm a big fan.
Another source of protein.
Another source of protein. How's that looking? We see it?
Yes, it's visible. It is pretty, even though you said you weren't going to make it pretty for yourself. It is pretty.
The rest of the week, I won't make it pretty.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions for me? We made it in time, regardless of our technology.
You did a great job catching up. Thank you. Yes. There's a lot of yum yums coming through.
Fantastic. And you certainly, look, if you're not used to oatmeal, if you're used to the instant packets with all the extra sugar, when you make this recipe to start, if it is not sweet enough for you, you certainly can add more maple syrup to it if you need to. I don't think it needs it, but you certainly can. And then maybe over time, as you get used to it a little bit more, you're getting away from the instant packets with all the sugar, you can start to cut back on the maple syrup. Your taste buds will adapt. But that's up to you.
Your taste buds totally adapt. And actually, that is a point in the newsletter that I shared the link to about how we really train our taste buds to want the sweet, right? Even if we're using, say, stevia in that recipe, you're training your taste buds to want the sweet.
Yeah.
So get whatever sweetener you use it in moderation.
You know, and the artificial sweeteners like the stevia, they're actually sweeter. They have a sweeter taste than regular sugars do. And so a lot of times using the artificial sweeteners train our taste buds to expect a sweeter taste.
Right.
And then when we use regular sugar, we find that we're adding more to try to match, you know, that heightened sweetness. So same thing with salt. When people go on low sodium diets, it takes a few weeks for your taste buds to really adjust and adapt to that less sodium, that less salty taste. But then over time, you'll go out to eat in a restaurant or you'll have like canned soup or something like that and you go, oh my gosh, this is so salty. Or you never thought that before because your taste buds evolve, they change. So the same thing with sugar. If you need more syrup, put it in, but see if you can get used to having less. And like I said, that's why we have all these other flavors in it so that we don't have to use as much of the sugar.
Well, you have converted me. I think I will try this. And I like, you know, you made 4 servings, right? It's not as though I have to spend 20 minutes making my breakfast every morning. I have to find 20 minutes one time and then I have 4 breakfasts.
Yep. It also freezes really well. So if you like leftovers like I do, I'm just going to put it in the fridge and I'm going to have it for breakfast this week. But if you're not a leftover fan, if you don't necessarily want to eat it every day for 4 days, it freezes really well. Those good old muffin tins that I talked about last
Yeah,
time.
and you
for
had
the
those
soup,
jumbo muffin tins.
I
That would
do.
be great. Yeah.
I do. I actually have some soup in the freezer right now in those jumbo muffin tins. So the oatmeal works the same way. You just put the oatmeal in the muffin tins, freeze them overnight, and then you can flip those muffin tins upside down, run them under hot water, and the frozen oatmeal will slide right out. And then I just put all of that in a freezer bag, and I can have the cranberry oatmeal whenever I want. So,
awesome.
All right, guys, that is our time. If we don't have any more questions, I will see you in the new year. No questions?
There's no other questions coming in. Just
Okay.
want to make sure everybody sees Dana did post a link to the recipe.
Perfect. Thank
So
you,
that's
Dana.
in the chat box.
And for January, so our teaching kitchen will resume in February, recipes pending, I don't know yet. But January's Lunch and Learn is going to be on intermittent fasting. So I hope everybody can join for that. So.
Yep, everyone's just saying thank you. So thank
Fantastic.
you, April. All right.
All right. Bye, guys. I'm going to go have some oatmeal.
Okay, bye.